UK MMA legend and now broadcaster of the PFL. Dan, how you doing?
Really good, yeah, really good. Happy to be here today.
Obviously, we saw you with the PFL a little bit last season as well, but now we've seen the announcement you're with them for the Europe season this time. You obviously had various different offers. Why do you think PFL was the right one for you?
You know, I mean, ultimately the answer is in the name, professional. It's the Professional Fighters League. It's a league for professional fighters, and that's what my life is about. I love MMA. I love martial arts. We have to professionalise it. We have to protect these guys. We have to keep them busy. We have to make sure they're paid well. You know what I mean? I feel like PFL ticks all of these boxes, and with the business plan they've got, with the trajectory for the business over the coming 10 years, it's scary the progress they're going to make, and they've got everything they need. I mean, look at the stars that they've got in this room right now. Like in a couple of years' time, these are going to be household names around the world, and people are going to be enjoying their performances.
As someone who saw like the early days of UK MMA, what it was like, what does it mean to you to kind of see like a global organisation put such a footprint down in Europe and have their own European, UK-based organisation?
It's fantastic because, you know, we've always had really good talent in Europe. We've always had great shows, great events, Cage Warriors, Cage Rage, you know, Extreme Brawl where I made my debut. They're always great fights, great events. But the thing that we struggled with was consistency. I was always calling promoters to try and get matchups, and I was always having fighters' opponents pull out. If you sign with the PFL, they're going to make sure you're active. They're going to make sure you're looked after and you're paid, and you can focus on your game. You know, and like, I mean, Simeon standing next to me right now. He was 4 when I made my MMA debut. Like, he's learned MMA as a game. So that's even more impressive for me, because we're going to see these guys take MMA to new levels. And with the platform that the PFL offer, and if I can help out along the way somewhere, you know, brilliant.
Obviously, you're with an organisation. You've talked about trying to make a comeback at some point. Is that something you've maybe talked to a PFL about? Or?
It was mentioned on the call the other day, actually. I've had a few calls with them recently discussing what I'm going to be doing for them in the future and how I can help, better help grow PFL Europe. And the idea of me fighting has floated a few times. There's a couple of guys. I mean, Anthony Pettis and I have always talked about fighting one another. Of course, he's got Roy Jones in a boxing match, which will be fun.
I'm going to ask you about that.
Great fun. I love it. Anthony Pettis would be a good one, but you know, Jake Paul's around. Who knows what's going to happen? I'll always have my mouth guard in my pocket, ready to go.
Return of the Red Mohawk.
Why not? It's really long at the moment. How long it is at the moment? Yeah, I would have to dye it red. Yeah, it would be weird if I didn't come back with a red mohawk, I think.
We saw some big fights announced for the US season a few days ago. Brendan Loughnane, Marlon Moraes, we've got Rob Wilkinson and Thiago Santos, Robin Mercier and Shane Burgos. Which fights like that kind of stand out to you the most?
I mean, to see Brendan get opportunities to fight someone like Marlon Moraes, I mean, he proved himself at the end of the last season. What a fantastic performance against Chris Wade and Bubba Jenkins. Now, Marlon Moraes is a legitimate, world contender. We're going to put him in front of Brendan Loughnane, and I think Loughnane's going to show everybody that the level in PFL is as high as it is anywhere else in the world. And of course, Santos moving over from the UFC, taking on Rob Wilkinson, who for sure looks so much better at light heavyweight, doesn't he? He didn't look himself at middleweight. Now he's grown into his frame. He's a scary individual. And I'm just, Shane Burgos is a fantastic signing. I think those events are going to be a lot of fun, and I think we're going to really start to see where the PFL level is compared to everywhere else.
With launching the European Series this year, couldn't ask for more than having Brendan win last year, could you?
It was fantastic, and even like Stevie Ray did an amazing job, because he was hanging around for a while, hoping for an opportunity. He got the opportunity, he took it with both hands. Beat Pettis twice, the Scottish Twister. It was just, it's beautiful to see, and I think there's a lot of other fighters around the UK that have either, the moment may seem like it's passed them by, and this might be another opportunity to get back into the limelight and show people what they're capable of. There's a lot of fighters ready to be signed, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I was going to come on to that. Obviously, we've got a lot of fighters here today, but you're someone who's seen a lot of talent of late. Is there anyone, maybe guys you've trained, guys you've worked with, or just guys you've seen that you think would be a good fit for PFL Europe that isn't already here?
I think there are a few. I think I mean, well, we've got Connor Hughes here, and he fought Teddy Stringer as an amateur. I think that as a rematch would be fantastic. Connor Hughes is going to be a real special fighter. Teddy Stringer, he's one to watch for sure. Jordan Coco, again, another one, really talented, skilled fighter that's going to be on the scene very soon, making big waves. I think up and down the country we're inundated with talent. You know, I'm at London Shoot tomorrow. I'll be at GB Top Team on Thursday morning. I'm just excited to walk onto the mat and be surprised. And honestly, you know, one of my favourite fighters that I think would be a really good fit for here is Nathan Fletcher. You know, super talented, very well spoken, dedicated to his sport, incredibly professional. I think he'd be a really good fit for this at some point in the future when he's ready.
You get the rematch with Dom then as well, right?
Here we go, exactly. And what a great signing Dom Woodard. He's going to go from strength to strength with the PFL, no doubt about it.
Yeah, obviously, you know, the big guys here, Dakota, Simeon, Dom. Just give some thoughts on those guys.
I think they're all incredible. I mean, you know, Simeon is a real future talent. Like the way he moves, his fight IQ already is scary. You know, the range that the guy's got, his arms and legs are going to hit most people when they can't even touch him. And then, you know, we know what Dakota can do. We've seen her in Muay Thai. We've seen her in mixed martial arts landing clean elbows and knees. She's a scary individual. And of course, you know, she's big for the weight class. She's doing a lot of S&C with Paul Reed at Vortex now. We've not even seen the beginning of these fighters' careers yet, and now they've got this limelight, they've got the opportunity to show us they can. It's pressure off. All they have to do is get up, train every day, and be ready for the fights, and everything else is taken care of.
On like the bigger stages, a couple of big free agents at the minute, Francis Ngannou, Luke Rockhold. What would it mean for PFL to be able to bring in just one of those?
It would be a game changer. I mean, honestly, any of those names, anyone that's a big name in the sport of mixed martial arts, there's a place for them here. Whether they are like still at the beginning of their career, ready to build, or whether they're kind of, you know, a couple of fights left on their career, come and have great fights. We've got the pay-per-view division now with Jake Paul running that, and you know, Luke Rockhold would be a great fit. You know, you could put him in middleweight or light heavyweight and he'd fit perfectly. Francis Ngannou, of course, would be a massive signing. And you know, I do think he'll dabble in boxing a little bit. I think we'll get a boxing match or two, maybe a mixed rules fight with Tyson Fury, perhaps. I won't mind seeing that. But you know, bring Ngannou over, sign him, and get him against Antadelia. It'd be a brilliant fight to watch.
And obviously, I think the pay-per-view division kind of helps that in the sense that a lot of these guys, they might not be able to do the quick turnaround. So someone like Rockhold, for example, the 6-week turnaround might be a lot for him, but the pay-per-view division offers like new opportunities for people like that, doesn't it? For sure it does. And you know, not only it gives people an opportunity, but it allows people to progress all the way through their career as a PFL athlete, from an amateur when you very first sign, all the way through to your last couple of fights where you want those, you know, the big paydays, the massive fights. Some fighters that we could sign are already at that stage now, right? Luke Rockhold's already done all of the work that he needs to do as a mixed martial artist. Let's get him a couple of really big fights to end his career here, and then he can ride off into the sunset as, you know, one of the legends in the middleweight or light heavyweight division, maybe. Of course, someone else we touched on earlier has made a big impact on PFL in terms of growing the organisation is Jake Paul. Just how big of an influence do you think it is for someone like that to be a part of the company?
It's very exciting. Jake Paul's really smart. He's a great promoter. He's got an eye for combat sports. You can tell that. He knows how to pick his own opponents and rile them up and market the fights very well. He also, you know, I mean, you can't deny the fact that he loves combat sports and he's dedicated to making some things right that are not right at the moment. And I think him joining forces with the PFL, it reinforces the professionalism of the PFL, I think. You know, he's going to bring in a big powerhouse promoter in that's got the potential to have some fights himself, and he can talk up a storm. You know, you could put any fight on the TV and Jake Paul's going to be able to sell it to his fans. That's exciting for these young fighters that want that platform.
And obviously that's a fight you'd love, right?
Yeah, why not? Absolutely. All respect to Jake Paul. You know, he's putting the work in. He's invested himself, time and money and effort. I also think he's going to give Tommy Fury all kinds of problems as well. So, you know, we could be looking at someone that's ready to move over to mixed martial arts sooner rather than later. And I think he'd do well at it.
Yeah. Switching gears, you got married recently. Congratulations.
Thank you.
She's just sitting behind us, I think.
She is, yeah.
She's got a fight coming up.
Yeah.
Big one.
Yeah.
First fight in a while, first fight with you as like head coach. How are things going in terms of preparing for that?
honestly, I couldn't be happier. She's looked fantastic. She needed some time off after her last fight in Brasilia was, 3 years ago now. She was up a weight class because she couldn't cut weight because she was having health issues. It was just not the ideal circumstance. And honestly, I'm not saying this just because she's my wife. We haven't even seen a fraction of what she's capable of yet. Like what I see in the gym on a daily basis, when she's hitting pads, when she's sparring, when she's grappling, she's world championship material. Whether that's PFL or UFC or wherever, she is world championship material. And it's been a pleasure to work with her. And it's a journey to have together. I'm a coach. I coach lots of people, but when it's your wife and she has to listen to me 24 hours a day, she gets full-on coaching all the time. So hopefully she's not sick of it by the time March comes around, but she's improving very quickly.
Yeah, of course, on that card we've got Leon and Usman again. Just early thoughts on that one.
Usman's going to be very difficult to beat again. The way Leon rallied in that last fight was spectacular. His corner team, I mean, they deserve 50% of his purse for that rally at the end of the fourth round. And Leon is an incredible fighter that he's only really just realising his potential. I think the fact that he got the belt around his waist is going to make him realise how talented and skilled he is. So I think we're going to have an even more competitive fight, but I do think Usman is going to be a real handful for him again, of course.
Yeah, obviously we've got a big fight this weekend as well with Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. One thing I want to ask you about is there's been a bit of talk about the way the fight's been promoted.
Or not been promoted.
Exactly, I agree. Especially when you look at power stuff.
It's disappointing. It's really disappointing. Because the thing, especially because, look, I don't like power slap. It's not my thing. I think it's dangerous, and I think it's one person taking advantage of other people trying to make a bit of cash off the back of it because they're willing to do it. It's the nature of the world that we live in. But the thing I don't like about it is that we've all worked so hard in mixed martial arts to build it up to a point where it's a legitimate, recognised mainstream sport. And then you bolt on power slap on the side and push it through the UFC socials, and it just devalues everything that we've already done. It's having it at the apex, associating it with the UFC. If you just picture a scenario where someone gets hit with a slap, they hit the floor, Forrest Griffin doesn't catch them quite quick enough, and they don't wake up. And that is not only affecting power slap, which would be terrible, but it's also affecting MMA because it's all being grouped into the same thing, and it won't be distinguished if something like that happens. It's unfortunate, but it's time to give that some separation and keep MMA as pure as it is.
If you were still with the UFC, of course, how would you be having words? What would you be doing?
Of course I would, but that's why I'm not with the UFC anymore, because I have a tendency to have words. And I would, of course. I couldn't represent something like that. And I'm disappointed when I see Forrest Griffin and Jason Herzog and people involved in it that should know better. They should know better. Like the amount of people that have been invested in mixed martial arts for 20, 25 years, that are just keeping their mouth shut because they want to keep their foot in the door. A lot of people have lost my respect. It's been a really upsetting period of time to watch this be promoted over UFC 284, which is what a card, what a fight card.
Two best pound fighters in the world. Yeah.
It's very disappointing, and I'm glad that they're speaking out, especially Islam. I'm glad he's speaking out because he deserves that promotion. He deserves it. He's won the belt. He's beat Oliveira in impressive fashion. You've got Volkanovski, the undefeated, undisputed featherweight champion, moving up a weight class. I mean, that's it. That's all the promotion you need for it right there. You've got to watch it. You've got to watch it. It's going to be amazing. Just unfollow UFC on Instagram so you don't keep seeing power slap coming up because it makes me feel sick.
You mentioned obviously Pettis and Roy Jones Jr. earlier. I want to get your thoughts on that Gamebred card because an old friend of yours, Paul Daly, is coming back. Against Anthony Taylor. What are your thoughts on that?
As soon as I saw the fights being announced, I was very excited. I think there's some really good ones. Even Pearl Gonzalez against Gina Mazzani is a good scrap. Paul Daly's going to be way too much for Anthony Taylor. He's more comedy than competition. Paul Daly's going to really hurt him. But the other fights on the card, Jacare against Vitor Belfort, what a great card. Gamebred knows what he's doing. Masvidal's a smart guy, and what a promoter. I won't mind seeing him fight Jake Paul over here. How about that?
That'd be fun. Just finally, don't want to take up too much of your time. PFL Europe obviously starting next month. If you had to give the big sell to convince people to watch, what would you say?
This is the UK talent, the European talent on prime time. You've got to check it out. I mean, the talent that we've signed already, the talent that's coming through. it's going to change the game of mixed martial arts. And when you get locked in, you're in that March show, you're going to watch those fighters, you know full well who's fighting who at the next event, right? That's the best thing about the PFL, right? We've got the March show, and then we've got the next weight class in Berlin in July, and then we're into Paris, and then we're starting to get matchups from the previous 2 events happening. I'm already hooked. I think it's going to be incredible, and I think the performances that these fighters give, not only because they know they can get to a good chunk of cash and some fame, but because there's even more fame and money on the end of it. What more do we want as prize fighters?
Thanks for your time today, man. Looking forward to seeing the shows.
Thank you, my friend. Good talking to you.